Well, there is no boy drama per se, but what are they going through and what's going on with the boys? In that tween phase between 8 to 12, what are the things that we must notice in this phase which are alarming? And then it's a vicious cycle where we are overwhelmed, they are overwhelmed, and nobody knows what's going on. Puberty. The word itself brings a flood of memories. School meltdowns, acne breakouts, and things that seemed so big back then but now seem laughably small. Now we're on the other side of it as mums, seeing our children navigate this phase that is emotional and overwhelming. Your sweet little son that now smells like a locker room. Your daughter, who's prancing around in a princess gown all over the house, now slams the door and says, Mom, you just don't get it. We chalk it as a phase, but actually, it's the hormones that are rushing in action. What if there were ways to manage these hormones with small, sustainable actions, like changing what's on their plate? Today, I want to welcome Charvi Bubna to discuss hormone health with us. Hi, I'm Sneha Jhaverii, your fellow mommy friend and the host of Mumma Approved, a podcast where I ask all your questions to the best people in the industry. Hi, Charvi. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from San Francisco. I'm sure all the parents hearing this are going to be super excited and it's going to help them navigate a phase where they feel blindfolded navigating right now after speaking to you. So let's start with the basics. What I want to know from you is that what are those key traits and problems that start cropping up in that tween phase between 8 to 12? And what are the things that we must notice in this phase which are alarming?
hmm Firstly, hi. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, very good question. This age between 8 and 12 is what I like to call a quiet storm. On the outside, kids still look pretty much the same, I would say. But under the surface, there's a whole lot of rewiring going on, right? So hormones are beginning to stir, the brain is kind of remodeling itself, and they are slowly inching towards puberty, and most of it is happening in silence. You might notice things like mood changes or bigger appetites or like more sleep or even trouble sleeping on the flip side. So I would say it's not really random. It's the body kind of laying the groundwork for the next stage. And this phase is really important because it's one of those rare windows. I like to call it a rare window where we can actually build that foundation. You know, um, we tend to wait until those teen years when everything's louder, right, and more chaotic. But I would say by then we're reacting. So if we tune in right now, we can really help those kids develop healthy habits, like the basics of how they eat and sleep and like deal with stress. Those are those basic habits that actually support the hormone balance instead of fighting it. So to conclude this, I would say it's not just a phase to get through, it's more of a chance to build that long term resilience.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what happens is that we don't notice, and even when the kids are much younger and they're going through things, it's just sometimes comforting to say, oh, it's just a phase, you'll get over it, or the child will get over it. But actually it's something that it's there are signs that start much earlier, and then we only address it when it becomes big, huge, and then we say, oh my god, they're being not listening, or they're being defiant, or and then we label our kids, and then it's a vicious cycle where we are overwhelmed, they are overwhelmed, and nobody knows what's going on. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I like to
but
call it the quiet storm, It's like that
yeah,
literally.
it is a quiet storm. In fact, when you look back on us and when we were teens,
Yep.
and what our mothers possibly were going through, and I can actually picture my mom's reaction to the drama that was unfolding in my life at that time. And now when I look
Exactly.
back, I feel like, oh my God, like really, what was I thinking? And we all have this look back. But today, I think things have become way more complicated,
Mhm.
because it's not just about the kids acting out and the kids having mood swings and all, because those mood swings then lead to the social media aspect, and then there is the bullying aspect, and then there is cyberbullying, and there's too much going on, and it all
Oh,
starts with something that is so simple and can be addressed, which today, hopefully, at the end of this session, we are going to be in a better place after you have kind of shed light on that. Um,
mm-hmm.
so we talk about girls
Absolutely.
and their gangs and their friendship drama and their hormonal imbalances and all of that. But what tends to go unnoticed and unspoken about is the boys and what they are going through. And well, there is no boy drama per se, but what are they going through and what's going on with the boys?
Yeah, the boys kind of fly under the radar, right? It
Yeah,
always happens. We always hear about those the girl drama, the drama, the periods, the mood swings, as you said, the friendship drama. But boys, I would say, go through as massive of changes as well. It just tends to show up in a very different way and a more quiet way, or sometimes even louder. So I would say around the age of 9 or 10, looking at it from a hormone standpoint, boys get the steady rise in testosterone, right? And that hormone kind of impacts a lot for them. It impacts their growth, it impacts their energy levels, it impacts how they sleep, and it even impacts how they respond to stress. So you might see them be more restless or, more impulsive, or even have like sudden outbursts of anger, but and we might say, oh, they're being bad, but it's not per se that they're being bad. It's more of their brain really learning to navigate a new hormonal landscape.
yeah,
So what makes it kind of trickier is that boys are often taught to keep their feelings in, right? So while a girl might say, I'm feeling off, a girl would be more likely to express that. Boys might just go silent. They might go silent, or on the flip side, they might act out. So, the journey isn't necessarily easier. It's just less visible, I would say, for a lot of the cases. But they still need emotional support. Sometimes I would say maybe even more than girls do, because they're not always taught how to ask for it.
yeah.
So this would be a really good time to like help them feel seen, and safe and normal. Like even a simple like, hey, what you're going through makes total sense. Just letting them know that you're there for them and that you understand. That in itself can make a huge difference.
But what is it that they're going through? Like the girls are going through these meltdowns where they feel emotional. They're feeling, and I know because we are women, so we've gone through it, right? But what are the
Mhm.
boys going through? Are they going through aggression? Are they going through
Mhm.
what are they going through?
They have, as I was saying, they have this steady rise in testosterone, right? So they get restless, they get impulsive. They have sudden outbursts of anger because it's obviously that there's that one male hormone that's
So
really
aggression.
going. Yeah,
Basically, they're
I would
going through this aggression phase,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
S-
just to help them know that okay, what, hey, what you're going through makes sense. Just letting them know that you understand as a parent is important.
And what about from a hormone standpoint? What about girls? What are the girls going through hormonally?
Yeah, all right. So when it comes to girls, girls tend to get a lot more attention when it comes to puberty, and for good reason, right? So the changes are more obvious, I would say, and often more discussed in girls, right? There is obviously the start of periods around that time. There's like breast development, there is mood swings, there's social pressure, and there is more visible emotional fluctuations, I would say. So when it comes to girls, there's the two female hormones, just like there's testosterone in boys. There's the two female hormones, which is estrogen and progesterone, which are powerful hormones at this time, and women in general. So they don't just affect the body, but they influence how girls feel as well, right? How girls relate to each other, and even how secure they feel in themselves, right? So
Okay.
what's interesting is how much earlier this journey kind of begins for girls. For boys, if it's say 9 or 10, it's also like between 7 and 8 for girls. And how much more out in the open that it can be. And for girls, I would say, I mean, it can be like a double-edged sword. On one hand, there's more support and language around it for girls, but on the other hand, girls are also under a microscope a lot sooner, I would say. Especially when it comes to body image or behavior, or being labeled as too emotional. So while
Yeah.
boys might struggle silently, girls often struggle, I would say, under pressure. Both
Okay.
need support, I would say.
Right. So, what are the dietary, because this is your specialty, right? What are the dietary choices and lifestyle choices that we are making that is actually aggravating this hormonal pressure imbalance? I would like to call it this phase, for the lack of a better word. What is it that is
Mhm.
aggravating this whole process? Is it the choices that they're making, lifestyle? Well, of course, the hormones are at play and they are doing what they're doing. But are we aggravating the situation by the dietary choices and the lifestyle choices that we are making?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a component, right? I mean, lifestyle is the biggest one. I would say if you're asking what are the lifestyle habits, I would say there's a few common habits, that quietly disrupt hormone health. And sometimes they're also easy to miss because it becomes like second nature for so many people, right? So number one, I would say would be skipping breakfast or starting off the day with sugar. So likely like highly processed cereals or like toast or like carby breakfast, I would say, spike blood sugar and then crashes the blood sugar, which leads to that fatigue and the mood swings and the cravings.
Yeah,
That's one big one. Then I would say another one is processed snacks, like chips and cookies. People in their kids lunch boxes tend to give they tend to give chips and cookies, which are full of inflammatory oils that kind of worsen acne issues and anxiety and hormonal imbalance. Then I would say one more habit would be late night screen time, which suppresses melatonin, which messes with sleep, and it raises the stress hormone, which is known as cortisol, which throws off that whole hormonal rhythm. That is one
yeah,
big one. Then I would say gut health is key as well. If a child is constipated or bloated, they can't clear hormones properly. What happens is those hormones recirculate and then trigger symptoms like, say, acne or mood swings in children. Then I would say one big one that's often looked over is food sensitivities, especially to dairy and gluten. That can drive gut inflammation, it can drive fatigue and skin problems, even without those classic allergy symptoms. Not to say that everyone is allergic of gluten and dairy, but I'm saying also the quality of it matters a lot in today's day and
right,
age. Um,
right,
and then I would say one more would be a big one would be emotional suppression, which leads to internal stress, which can spike our stress hormone and disrupt everything from, say, sleep to mood. So I would say spotting and gently, like, shifting these patterns early can make a really big difference in how balanced and resilient their bodies can feel at this sensitive age.
right. So, when we talk about acne specifically, right, because acne is so related to puberty, like we feel like it's almost like, okay, when you see acne sprouting, you're like, oh, yeah, she or he is possibly going through this puberty phase. So, is acne also driven by lifestyle, or is it just something, a way in which the hormones are getting released, or can it be controlled? Or is it something that we just have to wait it out? And, some people are prone to it, some people are not. And you just wait it out and leave it as it is.
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, actually, because, I would say acne is definitely hormonal, but it's not just hormonal. It's actually one of the clearest signs that the body is kind of struggling to keep up with all those internal changes that are happening during puberty. You know, um, when puberty happens, hormones like testosterone and DHEA, they ramp up oil production in the skin, and that oil really mixes with bacteria and dead skin, and boom, you have clogged pores, right? But what really fuels the fire is inflammation, and that's where food and lifestyle comes in, right? So
Right.
we've been talking a lot about refined carbs and sugar, so that things like biscuits and white bread and cereal, they spike insulin, which tells the skin to make even more oil. And then one controversial one is dairy, right? Dairy, especially processed bad quality dairy, can also aggravate acne through that similar hormone pathway,
Okay.
right? And then there's the gut. If the gut is sluggish, it means that the body can't eliminate hormones properly, as we were talking about. And those hormones get recycled, and you can start seeing this hormonal acne, especially around the chin and jawline area.
The chin and jawline,
So
that's where.
yeah, that's a big area where it happens, and it's shows that it's hormonal.
Okay. So, no, so let me get this straight. So, basically, when we see teenagers breaking out,
Mhm.
it's usually in this area.
Yes, this area. So like in this area and this area as well.
Okay. Okay. So, all this area would be hormonal, but then this
Yeah.
area is related to everything that the lifestyle choices and the dietary choices that they are making that is
Mhm.
aggravating the hormone situation, and that's why the acne is kind of popping up in unmanageable ways, and then
Yeah.
I've actually heard people at that age taking birth control
Mhm.
to manage their hormones, to manage
Mhm.
their pimples,
Mhm.
which please let's talk about that, like
Mhm.
what's happening there, and is this really something that girls at 13 and 14 should be taking to manage their hormones for their
Mhm.
zits?
Yeah, so very good question, right? So let's finish on this acne part, right? So
Yeah.
when we talk about the cheeks, that can point to slightly different triggers. So as we were talking about how jawline and the jawline acne is more classic hormonal, I would say cheek acne is more related to the gut skin connection, or more even like an environment skin connection. So I would say more of the cheek signs could be related to like poor gut health, like an
Okay.
imbalance probably in the microbiome or like inflammation in the digestive tract.
Right.
So it's more to do with that. So if a teen boy is breaking out on the cheeks, it's kind of worth both looking into like the internal factors, or maybe even external, like, okay, is there something external that's going on? Is it It's
Okay.
important to check, is the digestion okay, or is he eating more like a lot of processed or sugary foods? So that's
Yeah.
important to understand.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
And
talking about the birth, yeah, if you want to just ask the question again.
yeah, so the birth control, giving birth control for I don't know what they give to boys though. See, that's again another thing. We know about birth control being given to girls, but I don't know if whether the same thing is given to boys, or boys also take this kind of some kind of hormone regulation for their pimples and all of that. But I have actually seen people close
Hmm.
enough where
Hmm.
they are recommended to take this birth control
Hmm.
once they're on their period, of course,
Hmm.
to help the acne. And then they say, oh yeah, the acne goes away. Then I stop the birth control, then the acne comes back, and I'm just like,
Hmm.
I mean, of course, I'm not an expert, but this sounds scary, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, for boys, there's nothing like birth control, right?
Of
For
course.
boys,
So again, it's so right. We know that this is what happens with girls, but I wonder what boys are doing, and how they are managing their pimples.
not much is offered for them. If a
How
teenage boy is
sad.
struggling with hormonal acne, it's like more like, okay, it's just a part of it, right? It definitely is. So there's no standard hormone regulating treatment, I would say, given to boys, the way birth control is given to girls. It's just not there. That's just not a thing. But let's talk about birth control, because this is a big topic, right? So what's happening really when girls are put on birth control, to manage hormones? It doesn't actually fix a hormone imbalance, right? It more or less kind of shuts down the body's natural hormonal cycle and replaces it with synthetic hormones. And that's why, Pete, I always say, periods on the pill aren't real periods. They're kind of withdrawal bleeds. I
Yeah.
always say that. And I coach women now who are in their 30s and 40s, and they have just stopped the pill. And they have this major syndrome called the post pill syndrome, where hormones are all out of whack. So it's not like the pill is not it's not a magic pill. So I kind
Yeah,
of explained what really happens when that
right.
happens. But also to say it's not all bad. It can be helpful for symptom relief, for things like severe cramps or acne or like irregular cycles. But we have to know that it's not getting to the root cause at all. So
Yeah.
someone who's also been on the pill myself for a few months and really had horrible side effects from it, someone who's grown up with PCOS my whole life, when I was diagnosed with it when I was 17, you know if a girl is dealing with PCOS, or gut issues or stress or like nutrient deficiencies or blood sugar problems for that matter, the birth control might mask the symptoms without really addressing the real imbalance underneath. So even if someone in their tween years, or like someone in that when they go through puberty, when girls go through puberty, if they're put on birth control, I would say it's really important to address the imbalance underneath along with that, because at the end of the day, birth control is a very personal choice, right? So and it should also be an informed one. It's very
Right.
important that we're informed about what else comes with that.
No, sometimes it's a matter of, convenience or maybe recommendations. A lot of people who consult for skin issues, like, obviously when girls, especially girls, because as you said, there's nothing really that can be done for boys. So boys are possibly using some topical applications for acne or
Yep.
whatever. But for girls, if it becomes very acute, then they are put on to these birth control pills without really choosing to be on them. And maybe they are, of course, I'm sure they are informed what is happening, how it's happening, everything. But at that point, you're so desperate to get rid of the acne that you're just like, okay, it's fine. Let me just take this, and we'll figure everything out later. So that
Yeah.
I feel, I don't know if that's really the right choice. Maybe, as you're saying, one must go more in depth into the situation and fix the gut, fix the digestion, fix all of that. That might be a better way, a healthier way to kind of move forward in this situation. So, since you mentioned
100%.
PCOS,
Mhm.
since you
Mhm.
mentioned PCOS, um, this I've always thought about this. Is PCOS something that can be uh, reversed if it is detected earlier on? Or is it something that can be prevented by certain actions, by certain foods, by certain not eating certain foods? Or are we just predisposed to this? Are certain girls, women just predisposed to PCOS as something that this is how it is?
Absolutely. Let's talk about that, because it's wild. We're really seeing those early signs of PCOS in girls as young as 9 or 10 now, right? And that doesn't mean that it's a diagnosis right away. But the red flags are always there. And those red flags, I would say, are things like irregular periods and acne that won't budge. Or this it's called hirsutism. It's facial hair, or like
Yeah.
stubborn belly fat. you know it can even show up as sometimes as dark skin patches around the neck or underarms. And that
Okay.
kind of points to insulin resistance, which I would say is a core driver of PCOS. But there is definitely, as you were asking, is it manageable? Is it reversible? So PCOS in its sense is not reversible, but if we catch it early, it's absolutely manageable. And symptoms can absolutely disappear. But the key to doing that is to really support your metabolic health before the body locks into that major PCOS cycle. And that really involves and entails balancing blood sugar, making sure your meals are balanced with protein and fiber rich meals, reducing inflammation by cutting back on processed foods, and kind of keeping the gut and liver working as smoothly as it can to process the hormones properly. And we don't need to do this in a restrictive or stressful way. People automatically jump to, okay, this is going to be restrictive or this is going to be stressful. It's really understanding, and it's about making those small and empowering shifts that support the body without overwhelming the child involved. And prevention is power here. So we don't want the PCOS to get to a stage where it's like irreversible or like not
Right.
manageable. So it's really
Right.
irreversible. PCOS is an irreversible condition, but it's absolutely manageable. I'm
Okay.
a very live example standing here, sitting here.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
No,
So,
so what are those foods that can be included in the diet of these 8 to 12-year-olds? Because that's that very, very crucial phase for this imbalance to occur or not occur. So what are the foods, or what are the superfoods that should be the non-negotiable for the kids at that point?
so are you talking about just PCOS or in general?
No, just PCOS.
PCOS in general, right? So, as I was telling you, fiber and protein is really important, right? So, I would say fiber rich veggies are super important. So, like your cruciferous vegetables, like your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, then your zucchini, like basically all vegetables, and especially the cruciferous family and vegetables, say like zucchini, spinach, fenugreek, carrots, beets, so it helps with estrogen detox. It helps with insulin sensitivity, and these vegetables also help with gut health. So it's important to make sure that you get at least 2 or 3 cups of these veggies per day. And if digestion is weak, then I would say cooked or sauteed is the way to go and not raw. But at least get 2 or 3 cups of these vegetables per day. I would say that
Okay.
is super, super important.
This is about for PCOS and all of that. And would the same theory apply
Right?
even to the more general, like a more general well-being for boys and girls both? This is like a general thing as well, right? The protein, the fiber, all of that. Basically, a balanced plate every single time you sit down to eat. If I'm understanding this correctly,
Absolutely, absolutely.
right?
And I also didn't complete it. So like fiber is one, protein is one, healthy fats is one, right? Because healthy fats is like our hormone building blocks, which supports that cycle regulation and kind of reduces inflammation. So our nuts and seeds are very important. Our avocados is important, coconut, then good quality oils and like fats to cook with, like, our extra virgin olive oil, our ghee, our avocado oil. So that's important. And it's important also to avoid those inflammatory oils like, sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn, canola oil. Those are all not not really good, to
Okay.
consume on a daily basis.
So how do we know if there is inflammation? Like what are the signs of inflammation in kids
Mhm.
in this
I
8
would
to 12 phase?
Yeah. So we know that there's inflammation, if there is, say, there's a lot of red flags to it, right? If there's fatigue, if there's bloating, or if there's, like gas, or irregular digestion, or if there's like, say, brain fog or poor focus at this age, trouble concentrating on things. Then, of course, we spoke about acne, right? So if there's skin issues, then if there's, say, water retention or a feeling of like feeling swollen, would be one of them. Then I would say, mood swings, or it can show up a lot in mood swings or anxiety or irritability. Or if there's weight gain that's happening around this time, then it's also a sign of inflammation. um,
Okay.
you know yeah, I would say irregular periods, could be one of them for girls specifically. So yeah,
Okay.
these are some signs basically.
So when one notices all these signs, which is I think classic to every single tween at that point, right? Most of them are anxious, most of them are irritable, most of them are not really focusing like we would want them to focus. And they're all distracted because this is also that phase where they are, kind of maybe getting to know boys and getting to know girls and, all of that. So there's a lot of distraction in that sense as well. Socially also things are becoming different from them being kids, so they're becoming adults of in a certain sense. They're coming into their own. In
Yeah.
this phase, what are the experts that should come in and mothers should not hesitate to embrace to help mothers navigate this phase so that it is less turbulent for us and them? Who are the experts who should come in?
I would say that, obviously it's important to kind of have a child psychologist or a counselor. That's a very important one because, when a child's anxiety is persistent, that is very important. If they are withdrawing socially or acting out, or, if there's like big shifts in like mood or motivation or self-worth, it's important to give that child and the mother, a safe outlet, to build that emotional regulation, to have coping mechanisms and strategies, and to build that social confidence. So I would say that is one big one. Then I would say, obviously, the pediatrician is important, is very, obviously a very important person to have on that team. Then I would say like a functional or integrative nutritionist is also important, right? Because to understand and to really help them deal with like the blood sugar instability, to get their diet right, to address their gut imbalances or any nutrient deficiencies also, which can sometimes mimic behavioral issues. So to
Right.
understand that and really look at it from like a holistic perspective, that's really important, where they can run lab work, or guide like basic food based approaches. That's super important.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
then I would say an endocrinologist is also really important, right? For like if hormone related symptoms emerge.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
definitely one. Yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah. There's a few more also. I would say like maybe an occupational therapist, or for a parent, I would say like a parent coach or like, like a parenting specialist could also be one.
Okay. Cool.
And one more is like maybe a mindfulness or yoga instructor, to help the child at that age to kind of, to teach the body awareness and stress relief techniques.
Okay. So when we talk about puberty, okay,
Mhm.
and of course, gut health now has become so important in the recent few years. Gut is something that everybody's talking about, and we're calling it the second brain and all of that. So, how can we ensure that
Mhm.
their gut health is protected through?
Mhm.
Are there like certain superfoods that can be given to the kids, because we can't stop at that age? Again, everything is a battle, right? So telling them, oh, eat this, eat that, is going to create another array of problems for parents, right? They're just like, I have too many battles to fight, so this food battle I'm not going to fight because it's just something that I can't win. So
Mhm.
in that, at that point, is there something that like maybe two or three foods that are non-negotiable? This is what you should be eating for your gut to build flora of your gut, so that the hormones and the gut and everything is more in sync.
Mhm. Absolutely. Great question. So I would say probiotics and prebiotics are very important, right? So prebiotics are food for the gut good bacteria. So the prebiotics are very important, like, our garlic, onions, like, leeks, bananas. I would say like soaked overnight oats are very important. Then our colorful veggies and fruits are very important. I wouldn't say there's two or three protective foods. I would say there's a lot of protective foods, that
Okay.
can help the child. Then our whole grains are very important. Then our probiotics are important, like our, plain like cultured yogurt with no preservatives or additives, plain yogurt that have good bacteria in it. That's really helpful and important. Then our fermented foods in small amounts can be a great addition, like fermented vegetables or like, non-spicy homemade pickles can be great. Our good fats can be really helpful as well, like our ghee, our nuts, our seeds, all of that. I wouldn't say there's one, there's a lot of them. I
There's a
can go
lot.
on
So you
about.
basically pick and choose
Yeah,
what's working for your child and make sure
right.
you can get as much in as possible without fighting.
Totally. And I would say not even pick, and let me just make sure there's variety and diversity because that is so important to build a child's gut. I can't even stress on it enough. I
Right.
wish that I had this education when I was at that age, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much of it out there now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the kids now are extremely lucky because
Hmm.
there is so much awareness now, and mothers are on top of it. They are researching, reading, talking to people. So
Hmm.
nobody's kind of leaving it and letting it be, which is great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Charvi. This was absolutely phenomenal. This talk was an eye opener, and I'm sure parents are going to be overwhelmed. Guys, if anybody has any questions, please reach out and DM Charvi. We'll link her Instagram in our bio. Thank you so much, Charvi. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
This was great. Thank you so much, Sneha. This was like one of the most enjoyable things, topics I've spoken about. Seriously, it's so important and relevant. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to my episode. Please like, share, and subscribe, and share this with all your fellow mommy friends who you feel will get help from this.